Are you a businesswoman who is finding it challenging to get your ideas across and make a point? Welcome to Speakers Who Get Results with Elizabeth Bachman, a podcast dedicated to helping women get the visibility they want, whether making a speech or talking in a meeting. Every week, get valuable lessons from Elizabeth or learn from her roundtable conversations with experts and speakers on how to make a difference, not just a point. On to the show with your host, Elizabeth Bachman.
Hello, and welcome to Speakers Who Get Results. I'm Elizabeth Bachman, your host, and this is the podcast where we interview experts on how to move our listeners to take action. Whether you're speaking on a stage, promoting your company, in a meeting, or just in conversation with one influential person, it's all presentation skills, and we can use lots and lots of tools and techniques in order to get the results we want, the results we need. Before we begin, I'd like to invite you to go to our free assessment at speakforresultsquiz.com. That's www.speakforresultsquiz.com. And there you could take a 3 to 4 minute assessment that will give you an idea where your presentation skills are strong and where maybe you need a little bit of support. My guest today is international speaker Monique Blokzyl. Monique speaks in Europe, the US, and actually she's spoken in 20 countries around the world. She is a speaker trainer, the founder of the Business Launch Portal, which helps entrepreneurs around the globe build scalable businesses so that they stop selling their time, earn a six-figure income and more, and have a bigger impact. Impact is important. She's an awarded international speaker, published author, podcaster, and pitching expert. Monique also runs a vibrant global community to uplift professional speakers. Bringing her passion for business together with her love for speaking, she helps entrepreneurs turn their message into a golden key to success. Her business mantra is speak up, scale up, make a bigger difference. And today we are going to be hearing about how Monique grew up in the communist system of East Germany and learned how to value expressing herself, how she found her voice before the Berlin Wall came down, and how she has then transitioned into being a professional speaker and another fellow speaker trainer. I always love interviewing other people who are speaker trainers because I learn from everybody. So stay tuned now to hear Monique Blokzyl. And here is Monique Blokzyl. I'm so happy to have you. Thank you for joining us today.
So great to be here.
Yes.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thanks for having me.
Yes.
I love these interviews you're doing.
Thank you so much. Well, Monique, since you are very much a speaker who gets results, I'm going to be asking you about international speaking. Are you originally German or Dutch?
I am originally German, although I have some Dutch roots.
Yes. So, and where are you talking to us from today?
Today, I'm talking to you from Hanover, Germany, although I'm spending more time in Vienna. And to be honest, I'm pretty much all over the world all the time.
And so am I. That's one of these things, being a digital nomad. I'm working from a borrowed office. So my very nice friend is letting me use her office as a backdrop today. Yay. So Monique, tell me, I want to start off with the question I ask everybody, which is if you could interview somebody from history, someone who's no longer with us, who would it be? What would you ask them? And who should be in the audience?
Right. Okay. So there's so many inspiring people out there, and you might be surprised that even though I work a lot with speakers and professionals that want to step up with their speaking, or and also my core business, as you know, is helping people to grow and scale their business, also through speaking, by the way. I chose another entirely different figure from the past, which is he's still very, very present. And he has nothing to do with business, or not so much. And but he's been known as a speaker in great ways. And it's actually Nelson Mandela.
Nelson
Why
Mandela.
Nelson Mandela?
Yeah, wonderful. And he absolutely was a speaker. That was a huge part of what he did. So why Nelson Mandela?
Well, for so many reasons. One is really, I feel like he really spoke from his heart. Okay, he really had a mission. He had a clear intention. He wanted to unite. I mean, Nelson Mandela stands for forgiveness, right? He wanted to reunite or unite his nation, right? So South Africa. And again, I feel that there's so many speakers out there these days that promote themselves or promote products or promote something else. I find it really refreshing to know that there's really people out there, speakers out there that really want to make a difference, that comes from their heart, that creates an incredible impact, that because they're so clear on their intention and their mission, they're so consistent with their message, no matter where they speak or what they say or who they speak to. It's just this incredible consistency, just being crystal clear about what they stand for, what they care about, what the intention is with spreading their message. So that's really, inspiring me in many ways, because besides running my business, I'm also launching Voice for Love, which is actually a mission.
Say that again. Launching what?
It's called Voice. It's called Voice. It's like a movement. It's like I'm having this mission, which is called Voice for Love.
Thank you.
Because I realized that a lot of people, when they speak, no matter if they speak on stage or if they speak one-on-one to people, when we speak, we can either create or have two impacts. One impact is either we uplift relationships and we uplift people and we build bridges, or we do the opposite. Okay. And I realized that so many people on stage as speakers or in normal life don't speak their truth. They say what they think others want to hear. They don't speak from their heart. We speak from our mind. We've been trained hundreds of years to speak from our mind. Like, girl first, think then speak, right? I mean, you all heard that, right? We haven't learned how to speak from our heart, but I feel that when we speak from our heart, we build connection. So it's speak your truth, speak from your heart, speak to uplift others. Don't speak to manipulate people, right? I mean, so this is what I care about. So this is why I chose Nelson Mandela, because I feel like he spoke his truth against the odds, against what anyone else was saying. They thought he was nuts at the beginning, right? How could he have such a big heart? How could he want to, bring people together?
How could he forgive?
Seemingly have been, how could he forgive? So this is why I chose him.
I think that's wonderful. It's very exciting. I would love to have met him. That would be a high point. How did you get into speaking, and how did you learn that speaking from the heart is important?
So how did I get into speaking in the first place? I feel like I've always been a speaker. But even as a kid, being out there, I always loved to share my message. I always loved to speak up for things. Elizabeth, I don't know if you're aware, but I grew up actually in Eastern Germany, which I know you have a lot of listeners and audience in the US. And whenever I speak to my US friends, they're pretty interested and excited when I say, hey, I grew up actually in a communist system, right? And I just found out back then that, I was actually 18 years old when the wall came down, and I was on the streets to make it happen, okay? And quite a long time before the wall came down, we started to speak up in one-on-one conversations about freedom, about what we really cared about. Then in small communities, then on streets, and eventually, the result, right?
But
so already at an early,
were there so when you did that, were there restrictions? Was the government angry? Did you get punished?
Of course. Yeah, of course. I mean, as you might or might not know, but there was actually a, state security system. So there were a lot of spies on the own population, and Like for example, one day I was signing a petition that I had to sign with my name and my address. So I was actually on their blacklist already at a pretty early age. But why I share that with you is I feel like back then, growing up in a system like that, knowing that your neighbor, your teacher, your best friend could actually work for the state security, you were never safe to express your voice. You always had to think there were potentially consequences. So that is one thing. The second thing I learned was that it's still so valuable to speak up for what we care about, because eventually, as we did, one person, one community, one nation at a time, we created a big shift. The wall came down, Germany got reunited. So I understood that when we do speak our truth, we can make a difference. Okay. And you want to ask something?
Well, I'm curious, as there's sort of the before and the after. What was it like to transition? So the wall came down. You weren't instantly in the Western system. How did you follow your truth and keep to what you wanted as during the transition years?
Right. I mean, we were not overnight in the Western system, right? I mean, when you grow up in a certain society, in a certain culture, you don't transition like this, right? You have a certain way of thinking, you have a certain value set, you cherish, things more than maybe in other societies. In Eastern Germany, for example, we cared a lot about still community, right? Materialistic things were not that important, but we more dependent on each other because, for example, in just one house with like maybe 8 apartments, you only had one telephone, so you kind of depended on each other more, right? So you have different value systems, you have a different way of doing things. So you don't, just because the wall comes down, you don't have that kind of switch overnight. However, I was young enough to be very adaptable and take the best of both worlds. So even today, I'm grateful I grew up in that system because it taught me the life lessons and it made me who I am today. And as I said, it had a big impact on my speaking because I grew up in a society where sharing your voice, sharing your message openly was not necessarily without consequences, and you needed to be aware of that. And still, I realized that I care about speaking my truth because it can create a bigger shift in individuals, in audiences, in societies, in countries. And, also what I learned was that, looking back now at hindsight, as I spoke at the United Nations last year at a leadership conference in New York, I gave a speech and suddenly I heard me say something where I shared my experience of back then, and I said, I realized that most boundaries sit in our own head. Okay, and that if we let go of these boundaries, we can be anything or do anything or create anything or make any impact we want to make. And that is also true for speakers, because I know, and if you're watching and you watch Elizabeth's podcast on a regular basis on speakers who get results, and you think about stepping out there more and being more courageous to share your voice in more powerful ways, remember, any kind of boundaries are only sitting in your own head. You have a voice. Every one of us has a voice. We've all gone through life already. We have messages to share. We have experience to share. Every one of us received a precious gift. So share your gift and share what you learned with others, because it's powerful, it's valuable.
That's right? Wonderful. That's wonderful. So I know that now you help people speak up and scale up and grow their business through speaking. And you mentioned the phrase, as we were emailing back and forth, you talked about how to go professional with your speaking. What do you mean by that?
Well, that is actually a big conversation to have, right? What does
Well, that's
professional
why we're
mean? And I
here.
know that as many speakers there are on this planet, and as many people there are on this planet, probably everyone has their own opinion about what it means to be a professional speaker, right?
Mhm.
So some people say you're only a speaker if you make whatever amount of money, 50,000, 100,000 a year, just with your speaking. Or, other people say you're only a speaker if you're giving keynote speeches, everything else is not a speaker. Or other people say you're only a speaker if you're live on stage. If you do online speaking, you're not a speaker. Or other people say you're only a professional speaker if you are making, money only directly. You're a paid speaker. And I say this is all not my definition of being a professional speaker. My definition is a much wider one, which means that you can call yourself a professional speaker when you're making money with your speaking, directly or indirectly. That
Ah,
is my definition. Okay,
okay.
so if you're making money with your speaking directly or indirectly, you are a speaker, a professional speaker. Okay, that's my personal definition. So don't count me on that. Don't argue with me. Everyone has their own. Even the National Speaker Association, even the Global Speaker Federation, I haven't seen a concrete, solid definition of what it means to be professional, right?
Well, and I think that there are so many speakers out there. There would be a big
Right,
fight as to who got to,
right. Oh
who
yeah,
who
yeah.
gives the definition, whose
Oh
definition.
yeah.
I think with a lot of very loud,
Yeah,
talkative people calling them
right,
speakers, I think that would be a lot of people would object to that. Yes.
right. However, I realized that when I share that, my definition with people, a lot of people feel really relieved and say, wow, that means actually, as per that definition, I am a professional speaker. Wow, I can present myself as a professional speaker. I can be one. I say, sure. And by the way, the only person that can give you a permission of calling yourself a professional speaker is yourself.
Yeah,
Okay, so don't let anyone else talk you out of that.
that's true. That's true. You just put it on your description and say, here I am,
Right,
this is what I'm doing, and I am
right,
a speaker. Yeah.
right. So you also asked me, how did I get into speaking? So besides of my background and my insights, so as I said, already early in my life, I experienced how important and powerful it is to speak. But eventually, of course, it took me a few more years to start to get paid to speak, right? So, and I know that you have quite a few business leaders here that watch this as well. So if you're a business leader, I can encourage you. I've been a leader in the corporate world, and I was an expert at that time. I was an expert of pricing and yield management, which is part of part of the marketing topic. And I got invited by conference organizers, by big training firms to come. And being an expert on my topic, I was invited to speak there, run workshops there, speak at conferences, and I got paid while I was in a job, and of course in alignment with my management and so on, right? But even that back then, I started to be a speaker. And then, to be honest, when I stepped out of the corporate world and I started to build my own business, which some of you are maybe in the process or consider or have done already, well, speaking can really help you to give your business this extra boost.
Yeah.
I have to say that the first couple of years of me running my business, I gained most of my clients almost exclusively through being on stage as a
Yeah.
speaker, running workshops, of course also eventually getting recommended. But what I realized is that when I stepped out of the corporate world and I built my own business, I made a commitment and I said, I want to step up with my speaking again. Okay.
Mhm.
And I said, I want to be paid to speak. I want to attract clients to speak. I want to step onto bigger stages and I want to speak internationally. Guess what? Within, I think, a year or two, I have been speaking, I don't know, in 20 countries. I spoke in a German stadium, at a US conference center, in the Brussels European Parliament building. and I spoke to several times to hundreds of people, once to 3,500 people.
Wow.
Again, and all of that just came out of that commitment to say, I have something to share, I have something to give, let me serve also as a speaker. However, there's a difference, and just one more thing to add, Elizabeth. There's a difference in speaking if you are in a job in the corporate world, or if you are an entrepreneur. Because in the corporate world, often we are invited to speak about our expertise, about technical things, tactical things. As entrepreneurs, when we step onto stage, it's like we open up big time. We become very vulnerable because we start sharing what we really deeply, truly care about. And that's an entirely different way of speaking. But you wanted to ask something, Elizabeth.
Well, I was thinking that the way you're talking about this is wonderful. Thank you so much for this is great. I agree absolutely. And the way people make buying decisions from an emotional basis. Who are you? What do you sound like? Do they like you? And even if you are in a job and what you're selling is an idea to your team within a meeting, or if you're sort of positioning yourself to uplift your personal brand as someone who should be promoted and followed, that's still sort of a sales speech. And so getting people to buy in or buy. And for those of us who are entrepreneurs, I too get most of my clients by speaking, because I think when somebody watches you either online or live, they have a much different feeling about you than they do from a website or a brochure or something. It's really, you really get the live intuitive hit. That's why I was thinking about that.
Yeah. And still coming back to what I said earlier about Nelson Mandela, what I loved about him is he's so known for what he stood for. Okay, if someone is asking, what did he speak about? Forgiveness, right?
Yes.
Uniting a nation, right? So even when we speak in a writing way, like on brochures or on our website or in any other way, it's very important that we are consistent with our message. Okay, and when we do online marketing, which that's what we are teaching our clients to actually grow their business by focusing more on how to get more heard and seen and visible online and offline as speaker and in many other ways. Online, it might take a little longer. People might want to see you more often, right? So the shortcut is true, Elizabeth, as you're saying. The shortcut is give people a real life experience of you, which is one of the most powerful marketing tools ever. Yeah. Because they see you, they smell you, they experience you, they take value away from you, they know, what you stand for. They can also see, does our chemistry resonate? Do I like that person?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to ask you a couple of things. You mentioned that there are 4 critical questions to answer if you want to go professional with your speaking. Could you briefly go through those? Because what I want to then say is, what are the concrete steps you take to boost your speaking?
Okay, I'm going to be very brief, and if you want to go deeper into any of those, you just let me know.
I'll ask you, yes.
Okay, perfect. So there's 4 critical questions you want to ask yourself. And the funny thing is, I often realize that even established speakers, when I ask them these questions, sometimes are not easily finding an answer. Okay, so the first question, and here's, by the way, this is a precious gift to you. So if you consider stepping up with your speaking, get paid to speak, or you speaking to uplift your business, you always want to ask yourself these 4 questions. So what are these magical questions? The first one is just really the question, what is my message? Okay, what is my message? Because again, coming back to consistency, if people don't know what you stand for, they don't know what to book you for. They don't know what event you're a good fit at. They don't know what difference you make to their audience. They don't know if your topic is the right fit to them. If you as a speaker are a right fit to them as event organizers, you want to be crystal clear. And also, when you're clear on your message, again, you start building a reputation. And instead of you running after stage time opportunities, people will start knocking on your door because you will start getting known around that topic. And people will come to me and they often say, yes, Monique, but what if I have two topics that I'm that I'm passionate about? I say, perfect. Combine those to make this one, to combine them into one topic that is more connected to a certain niche that makes you stand out as a speaker. Being clear on your message helps you stand out as a speaker. So, for example, I had a client and she is running a property business. So they buy and renovate and rent and sell properties, right? So she was passionate about that. And then she said, yeah, but I'm also passionate about women and helping women to become financially independent. So which one should I talk about? And I said, perfect. Why don't you speak about you being a woman in the property business? Why don't you help women to invest in property in the right way, in the female way, and be successful with it? Now, there's a lot of people that speak about property investment. There's a lot of people that speak about women empowerment, but there's actually no one else that I know that speaks about that combination.
Yes.
You get me?
Yes.
So with that message combined, she's standing out. She becomes unique. So the second question, I could go more into detail like that, but I promise to be short. So the second question you want to ask yourself when you're clear on your message is, well, what's your ideal audience? Okay. And you want to ask yourself, who needs to hear that message? Who is keen to hear more about that? And why? What difference does it make to them? So for example, some of my first keynotes and workshops I gave exactly around the topic you mentioned earlier, Elizabeth, about how to convince with your message, right? I mean, I was an investor pitching mentor where we crafted speeches that were 2, 3, or 5 minutes long to investors to invest millions of dollars or euros, right? So you need to be brief and you need to be laser sharp. So I created that keynote and that workshop. And I asked myself, so who would need to hear more about that? And I realized that, of course, it is salespeople and it is entrepreneurs and it is marketing leaders and it is, a whole range of people that would need that. And then I asked myself, well, good, but when I can speak to all these people that need that message, who needs it the most? For whom is it most important and urgent to learn more about that? And then also I asked myself, good, and who do I love to speak to most?
Exactly.
Because again, when we are out there as a speaker, it's likely they want to continue working with you. It's likely you're going to spend more time with them. So you need to ask yourself, who do I love to speak to? Because as we are speaking, we build stronger connections, we build business opportunities, we build bridges, we start working together in other ways. So I asked myself, who do I love to speak to as well? And also, if you want to make money, you want to ask yourself the question, who from all these target audiences has the money to pay me well, right? So once you have all these target audiences that you could speak to, you ask yourself, who do I love to speak to most? Whom do I, stand out most with my expertise? Who needs it most? And third, who would be able to pay me in the best way? And where you find yourself in the middle, that's your sweet spot on your target audience.
Exactly.
So the third question is, good, now I know what is my topic. What do I stand out with? Who's my audience? Well, the next question is the question that everyone asks me all the time. Monique, I want to speak more. Where should I speak? It's the question about what's your ideal stage, right? So the question really is, what stages are out there? What events are out there? And when we work with speakers, we kind of map out for them, like what stage time opportunities are available and which ones are the best for them. Okay. Just to give you an idea, you can ask yourself, good, would I love to speak at educational institutions? Would I love to speak at schools or colleges or universities, right? Or would I love to speak at conferences? Good, which type of conferences are a perfect match, to my message and attract my audience, right? Or do I want to speak in, corporate executive meetings in big corporates? There's such a big list of potential stages where you could speak at. The important one for you is to find out which stage time opportunities are the best fit to my message and attract my audience. And when you know, like, I want to speak at universities, you need to go a level deeper and ask the concrete question. Good. Which universities are the best fit for me? You could ask yourself which universities are in my neighborhood, or which university have like a special education on my topic, right? So you want to identify the right places, the right stages. And then the last question you want to ask yourself when you know your message, your ideal audience, and your best stage is, how do I build a bridge from free speaking to paid speaking, right? How do I start getting paid to speak? And again, there's a whole process behind that of what questions you need to ask, what you need to do to eventually start getting paid and ideally upgrade your speaker fee, as fast as possible. And just one comment on that. As I said earlier, you're a professional speaker when you're getting paid directly or indirectly. There's so many ways of how you can get paid being a speaker. Sometimes I'm speaking at conferences and I'm not getting paid a speaking fee, but I make much more money than even a pretty high paid speaker would make by attracting clients. So again, you just need to know, how do you speak to create impact? How do you speak to build that connection? And speaking from your heart is an important one, because when you are open, honest, and authentic, and you speak your heart, people will feel it and people will connect with you in a much more powerful way. So there's so many ways of how you can make money with your speaking. And so these are the 4 questions. Let me summarize again, Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Find out, what is your message? What is your ideal audience? What's your ideal stage? And how do you build a bridge to getting paid?
That's wonderful. I love it. I love it. That's wonderful what you're saying. In the time we have left,
Right.
Actually, I'm going to ask you one more question first. And
Good.
When you speak in 20 different countries, how do you adapt to what listeners from another country want to hear? How do you adjust for speaking internationally?
Yeah. When you're a speaker, everyone thinks like you're being paid high fees for the very little work because you're only on stage for an hour. Not just quite like that.
Not true.
There's a lot of preparation going into this. Okay. So when I speak somewhere, I gather as much information as possible up front. Okay. I really try to get to know the audience. I want to know who is actually listening. Why are they coming? What is their intention? What would they love to learn? What are cultural specifics? And cultural specifics is not only different from country to country, but also from organization to organization, from university to university. There's do's and don'ts with every audience. There are things you say and you better avoid, right? And you just need to be aware. As you know, different cultures are very different. Some cultures are much more direct, others are much taken back, and you need to speak through what we call, like in German, we have this expression saying you speak through flowers. Like you're not expressing very clearly what you want to say, but you kind of tiptoe around it until you build a strong enough connection to be able to speak up on certain things, right? Again, how you're addressing people is a big difference. Who you speak to, who you look at, do you look them directly in the eyes or not? Again, all these kind of things you want to pay attention to. And here's a little bit of a golden nugget. What I do and what I've seen other speakers do is, when I go and speak in a different place, I try to greet them in their own language.
Okay? Wonderful.
So like the first 1, 2, or 3 sentences I say in their own language, no matter how I break my tongue. Okay. But I've done it in Lebanon. I've done it, in Malaysia. I just try to honor them in a way to learn a few things to say so I can greet them in their language, because that's also really a perfect icebreaker. because they know you care. You care enough to learn for them, with them, and you honor them in this way. Also humor is very different from culture to culture. So yes, a lot of preparation goes into this, and I love to adapt, because again, every time I speak, I want to really give the greatest service, the greatest value to everyone I speak to, no matter if I speak to 5,000 people. Every single person in my audience counts, and I love every single person in my audience. And I just know, I'm just giving a service, and my intention is always to build bridges, build connections, inspire, transform, open perspectives, motivate people to take action, and serve them in the best possible way, so that even 10 years from now, they remember my speech, because what I said and how I said it made a difference to their work in their life in a lasting way.
That is a wonderful thought to end on. I love that. How can we find out more? If there are people who want to go deeper into these 4 steps or concrete things they can do to boost their speaking, how can they find you?
Yeah. So the first thing is, you can look me up on my name on LinkedIn and just say I was in Elizabeth's podcast, Speakers Who Get Results. Okay. Also, I'm having a website, moniqueblokzyl.com. And I'm going to share a link with Elizabeth. We are running actually a 4-week intensive professional speakers launch program, where you can actually go with us through the 4 questions and get them answered, or find the answers to them, together with a community of speakers from all over the globe that also are keen to step up with their speaking. So doing it in connection.
Is this live or online?
So it is actually an online call, but I'll be there, online. Okay. Yeah. So we bring people together from the whole world, men, women, any kind of age, any kind of background, as long as you feel like you have a mission you want to share with the world in a greater way, and you want to get paid directly or indirectly making it happen. We just, teach you the basic steps to get there. And our aim is that after these 4 weeks, you know exactly what you need to do to step up with your speaking. And again, doing it with a tribe and the community is what's happened, a lot of times, is people open each other stage time opportunities.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
So, if you want to step up with that, I'll share a link.
Yeah. What's the name of the program for those who are just...
It's Professional Speakers Launch Program. And I can share the link with you, Elizabeth.
Yes.
So you can...
Yes. So that will all be in the show notes, and you can find it on the website and in the show notes. I know a lot of people listen while they're driving. I do too. So if you're driving, when you hear that, then just check when you're... When you're no longer driving, go back and check the show notes for this, and you can see how this is. Monique, it has been such an honor and a delight to have you. I think I might have to get back to you in about 6 months or so and go deep into how to get paid to speak and the techniques, because I think we could talk for a long time about that, you and I. And I too, as a presentation skills trainer, that's one of the first things people ask me is, how can I get paid? So I think we'll have to do this again and talk about it.
I'd be delighted. Anytime, Elizabeth, just let me know.
Monique, thank you so much for being with us. This has been Speakers Who Get Results. I want to remind you, before you go, you can go to our speaker assessment, the free assessment, at www.speakforresultsquiz.com. And there you can take about a 4-minute assessment where you can see where your speaking skills are strong and where you might need a little bit of support. This is Elizabeth Bachman. It's been great to have you with us, and I'll see you on the next one.
We have just concluded another great episode of Speakers Who Get Results with your host, Elizabeth Bachman. If you got value from today's episode, please feel free to share us with your friends and colleagues. You may also visit elizabethbachman.com for additional resources. Be sure to tune in every week for new episodes, and thanks for tuning in.